Hello everybody and welcome to Reed's Spider-Man Crawl Space Edition. Please check us out at the spidermancrawlspace.com. Well guys, I'm here to give you a wonderful set of reviews for the month of January. Also my last for January. I have some commitments coming up, especially that dissertation defense that I've been working on for about 8 years. So after this, I'm going to set up on the reviews until February. So I want to get, of course, right on here to Amazing Spider-Man 37, aka issue 838. Let's get right to the pros. First of all, guys, it feels like after having whatever the 2099 storyline is, we're right back to some great characterization. I love how Nick Spencer and Ryan Ottley just jump right back into the storyline. We get Peter, using the new device of the trying to find out the different scenarios to try to help things better as Spider-Man. And we're getting a lot of big subplots here with J. Jonah Jameson and Nora Winters over Jameson's new podcast that's going to kick off next issue. And what I like is Spencer just gets the characterization hit hard. He just hits everything with Peter, trying to use the device to, be more proactive as Spider-Man, but he realizes it's only temporary and it's kind of tiresome. And I like how we finally move this back into the plot that's been going after ESU, because Peter's PhD and everything that's been going on kind of feels like it's been sidelined a lot, and now we're actually seeing Peter Parker as the graduate student really trying to do a lot of research to try to wrap up his PhD. It's really nicely done. I'm actually hoping we'll see him do a thesis here or dissertation shortly. But I really like the talk between Nora Winters and J. Jonah Jameson. I really did like Nora Winters' character when she was originally introduced during Brand New Day, which is hard to believe, which was over 10 years ago now. But I really like how she really gets into how, the Daily Bugle was, as they said, clickbait before clickbait was a thing. And the relationship between Jameson talking about his ethics, use as journalism, and basically the difference between shock jock radio as well as Superheroes of New York is really well done. And Ottley and Spencer just nail it. Spencer has the characterization down, Ottley has the artwork done, and he really brings in a huge, great little piece here with Kindred a little bit, whereas that storyline's now about to finally kick into really high gear. But that leads a little bit into the cons. The cons kind of being is, I feel like we had this and the Chameleon was kind of left in with this, oh, the world will never know exactly what I got planned to. Okay, guys, back to Kindred and back to the life of Peter Parker and Mary Jane. It's nice, but it kind of feels like also that subplot's kind of just left alone, whatever 2099 was. And I kind of feel like Spencer had a storyline, editorial had a storyline, and they kind of mished them together, and we got the story that we did. And now here we are ready to move on to the Palace, which is the story arc coming up here with Chance and the superhero gambling area, as well as Kindred's big plan coming together. And I feel like we had this big hiccup, and now we're kind of like back to the main storyline. I don't mind other storylines in Spider-Man. In fact, it's a norm for comics across the board, has been since the days of the 50s. But sometimes you just all of a sudden you have the story end, and we're kind of like back into the stories everybody matters and cares about, and it kind of just disrupts the flow of the story. And I like the ending here with Kindred putting the piece with bringing back the original Sin Eater, whatever he's got planned in for Peter to pay for his sins. So it really does some amazing work, and it's great to have Ryan Ottley back. So I'll give this storyline an A-. Well done on the storyline. Which moves us on, speaking of which, to The Amazing Mary Jane, issue 4. So let's get right to the pros. First of all, I feel like after last issue, we're really moving towards the end of the story plot. Originally, The Amazing Mary Jane was kind of considered a mini-series that could become an ongoing series, which it kind of is now. It's going to get to issue 12, we know for sure. But I feel that we now are seeing a point to us. Mary Jane really talks about a piece with Master Matrix talking about how she's kind of protecting Peter, but is now kind of run into secrets and issues about keeping Mysterio under lines and not telling Spider-Man about what's going on, and her trying to, as they say, do the enjoyment of the acting. It's some great characterization on Mary Jane that I feel has been lost a lot, and people have been asking since issue 2 rolled around about why Mary Jane is, keeping Mysterio's secret in the movie. And it actually makes sense of what the Savage Six is trying to do between the money and manipulation of Mysterio, as well as the fact the way they're being depicted. You get the point. The Vulture, in one way, is trying to make money off of this, but in another main kind of saying, excuse me, who are you to tell our story and make money off of it when we did not give that interest? It's a really nice little thing that Williams does with the whole thing with Hollywood. We talk about the paparazzi, we talk about copyrights, the Me Too and everything else. And I really like that this is a very nice, story that has really brought in a lot of Mary Jane, the villains, the good guys, what Hollywood kind of is. As I was a part of that way back when, about almost now hard to believe 20 years ago. I was in that kind of entity too, between politics, shows, money, paparazzi, and kind of in the professional acting world. So I know where it's coming from. The only cons I can give here is I feel like now we're kind of ending to the storyline here. And yes, we need issue 3 to get the pieces together with all MJ here, but I feel like now we're kind of getting rushed to the end. And I know it's funny what they're doing with the paparazzi, but at the same time, they're kind of put into that context with they're trying to be journalists who are losing their code of ethics, but now like, oh, a supervillain is going to give them the ability to have military grade photography. Think of all the news and scandals. Never once do we see the piece that there is a downside to being a paparazzi or being on that journal issue about where do they violate. Here they've made deals with supervillains. It's kind of nice, but we kind of lose that piece into it. So I'm kind of enjoying where the storyline is going to end, hopefully in the next 2 issues. So this also gets an A- for me. Very well done from both Williams. And of course the artwork by Carlos Gomez, very nicely done. And of course, I saved the best for last, and we're going to go right into this Symbiote Spider-Man Alien Reality by Peter David and Greg Land and Jay Lester and Frank DeMarti. So first of all, the pros. I like that the storyline just picks up right away. We actually find out what has led to the storyline, how Doctor Strange kind of gotten the jump on by the Hobgoblin. We actually see Roderick Kingsley out of costume, taking out Wand with some sleep dust and getting the Grimorum area, and of course stealing and rechanging reality. And I like that it keeps the mystery of the Hobgoblin going, but at the same time, it kind of did what the audience is like, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, wink. The Hobgoblin's really Roderick Kingsley, but back then, nobody knew who he was. And Peter David really fits this storyline really good. He gets the mystic and the areas really well. But what really sells this story is when Peter ends up finding in this reality Uncle Ben's alive. Aunt May is so happy. It's an amazing moment where Peter's wondering, maybe this isn't a bad thing if this is the way my life is now. But only for it to all come crushing down with the Hobgoblin coming in, destroying him, apparently killing Aunt May, and Ben finding out who Peter was and blaming him for her death. And it is really heart-wrenching, but that also gets right into the cons. I feel like, and everybody knows, I'm a big Gargoyles fan, especially with the animation series on Disney Plus now, my own son has now discovered, but it's the classic. The Hobgoblin causes this, and why Ben Parker is upset. He blames Peter for what happened. Who invaded their home? Who destroyed everything? Who was more than happy to, innocents die just so he could get Spider-Man? Who's obsessed with Parker? It's the Hobgoblin, but yet instead of saying it's his fault for this happening, oh, it's your fault. Look what you've done, Spider-Man. Really, Spider-Man blew up the house. He did this. I mean, if anything else, he wanted them to get out of the house so he could take care of the Hobgoblin. Did they listen? No. And yet, he's the one getting blamed. That brings the cons, because when it's very much obvious with those kind of storylines, it turns into the, what have they done? And it just makes you want to kind of look at yourself and just say, no, it doesn't work. You had all the obviouses. This isn't Peter's fault. Now, is he blaming himself a little bit? Oh, yeah, classic Parker luck, but it's in character. But that part right there where Ben Parker does it, that's kind of an issue with me. But the artwork by Greg Land is fantastic. I feel like I stepped back in time to the original story arc with everything. It feels so 80s in the black costume, and it is well done. And it's going to get a solid A for me for the review. So A-, and A for all of these Spider-Man titles. Fantastic. I highly recommend you pick them up today. And on that note, folks, I am going to call it for the month of January. I will be back in February to talk about the current story arc here with my podcast with J. Jonah Jameson and all that fun stuff. Everybody, thank you for watching the reviews. Please check us out at the SpidermanCrawlspace.com. Also listen to our podcast. It is a fantastic time. Thank you for listening, everybody, and I will see you in February.